have your attention. We're running just a few minutes behind, but no damage done. So continue to eat your meals. But it's time for our next speaker, and he's already here on the stand. It's Mr. Ricky Vincent, the author of the book, Party People. Oh, excuse me, Party Music. Just dealt with somebody with Party People. Oh, I went to a play up in Oregon about that. Anyway, it's the inside story of the Black Panther Band and how black music transformed soul music, black power transformed soul music. So please give your attention to Mr. Ricky Vincent. We thank him for being here.
Hello? Y'all can hear me? Thank you, big man, for that introduction. Thank you for letting me be a part of this wonderful celebration of the 47th recognition of the Black Panther Party. And thank you. And that everything that the Black Panther Party has done to change the world. And I grew up, to give you a little background, they call us Panther Cubs now. My mother, Tony Vincent, was in the party, and she worked with Huey and Bobby and Eldridge and others in the, intellectual cadre. They were into a lot of the theory, and a lot of where Huey came up with his development of Marxist theories and how to apply them to the party's strategy and tactics. That was some of the stuff my mom did. Now, and so when I was little, I saw the Panther leadership in and out of the house. But they were there, they were all business. And I mean, they weren't even doing, some of the famous business. They were doing kind of serious stuff. And so my earliest inclinations was that the Black Panthers were serious. And they didn't mess around, and they didn't clown, and they didn't party. And my mom, she's accomplished quite a lot, but she survived polio when she was 16. And so she has always, kind of walked very gingerly, although she was able to regain her mobility and walk. But she didn't party. She didn't get down and funky. She didn't dance. And so, in that period, they would talk about somebody that was really soulful, and they'd say they were a revolutionary that could dance. And I was, yeah, we're going to. And that always struck me because sort of the mythos of the black militant was that they was so serious that not only were they, so serious that they would take on the power structure, but they were so serious that somehow the pop culture had moved them somehow out of the community. Like somehow they were on the extreme, and they weren't relatable to the rest of us. And I saw that happen just growing up, and how the narrative, the myth of the Panthers continue to evolve. And we all know this, that the Panthers are still alive today in everybody's imagination. And one of the aspects of that is that the mainstream tries to marginalize the militants, marginalize people that are willing to stand up to the incredible power of the system, of what they called the man back then, right? The man. So it came as a real surprise to me in 2001 when I was a DJ. I'm still a DJ at KPFA Radio, the History of Funk Friday. And I was working with Boots Riley, and Boots Riley from the Coup, and he was interested in putting a lot of funk on his new record. And so he would come over to my house with his hard drive, extended hard drive, so he could plug in and take all my beats. a lot about music and politics and culture. And one day he said, you know, Rick, I heard that the Black Panthers had a folk band. And I'm like, now that's a funny one, Boots. You're pretty funny. You have some funny raps. That's a funny one. Because the Black Panthers are the stoic, steely-eyed, militant revolutionaries. They don't cut it up. They don't get down and funky. That would mean that, you know, they're as funky as the rest of us. That would mean that all of us have the potential, not just to get down, but to get serious about revolution. And so there was a lot of potential in just what he said. If the Black Panthers had a band, had a funk band, that would change the game. And it turns out, he said, Rick, keep looking. He would always throw these little nuggets of history at me and say, Rick, go look them up. You know, you was in graduate school, you could do that stuff. And so this one I started asking some other former Panthers, Walter Turner, who works at KPFA, he does Africa Today. I asked him, I said, what's the Lumpet? You know, what's the name of this group? You know, do they really have, the Panthers really have a band? And he said, yes, they had a band, and I have their record. And for those of you that were here that saw the Merritt College film, and all of you stayed and watched the credits, that was a really interesting thing. A lot of people, I know when they go to the movies, they're gone before the credits finish rolling. All of you watched the credits. The music in the background, Bobby must be set free, that was the Panthers band, The Lumpet. Okay? And that was a recording they made in San Jose in the summer of 1970. Which the leader of the group insists was just a test run to see what might happen. And it was so exciting to the Panther leadership at the time, they just said, don't worry, you're done. And they pressed it and made a single, and it went out, and it was advertised in the back of the Panther paper and sold at Panther events as a deliberate effort to recruit. Because the whole thing was, this group came about in the spring of 1970 through the work of these three highly trusted rank and file party members who had met in San Jose in late 1968 during the upheavals. If anybody wants to go back to the fall of 1968, that was where the Third World Liberation Front and all the student strikes were happening, okay, San Francisco State. San Jose State, there were some young radicals that were organizing there and establishing a San Jose Black Panther Party chapter. And these young men were Michael Torrance from Berkeley High School, Clark Bailey from Oakland, Castlemont High School, and William Calhoun, who was from San Jose. Calhoun was a little older. He had actually been a nightclub performer. He actually played the piano as sort of a master of ceremonies at Big Al's, the strip joint up in Northeast. And I mean, he had done, you know, the sleazy, you know, pop music, rhythm and blues. He had sort of done the circuit and got disillusioned and came back to the Bay Area, you know, looking for some change. And he began at his hometown in San Jose and became an activist and met with the other guys, and they became activists, and they all had goals of becoming Panthers. And as time went on, in the fall of 1968, some of y'all may not remember this, but this is where the Olympic track team trained. So John Carlos, Tommy Smith, Lee Evans, all of those guys trained at San Jose State. And when they weren't training, they were going to these meetings and rallies organized by these young brothers. And that was where the Olympic Project for Human Rights emerged, the boycott of blacks from the Olympics, which it didn't happen, but it wound up with the protest from Tommy Smith and John Carlos on the Olympic gold medal stand. Right? And so these guys were there. They were connected to all of this. And like I said, they began working on the Black Panther San Jose chapter, but then things got hot in San Francisco, and they were called up They're like, you know, the pigs have vamped on the San Francisco chapter. We need everybody we can get. And so they drove up, these three guys and many others, and they spent the night with the police in formation all around the building and this and that. And a few events like this took place, and gradually these three young men became established as trusted rank-and-file party members. And one other thing happened, because there was lots of young men and women, black men and women, who joined the party honestly and developed a focus or a skill or something that they were designed to do. These young men, it wasn't a part of their official work, but on Wednesdays when all the Panther volunteers went to pack the Black Panther paper together, they would bind it, they would stack it, they would ship it, put it on the truck, send it out, bind some. A lot of volunteers came together to ship out the Black Panther paper. You guys should be familiar with the Black Panther party paper. Okay? And these three guys, as they did their work, they would start singing. They would start humming. They would just make up songs. You know, it's your thing. Do what you want to do. Whitey can't tell you what to do. Things like that. And this is what everybody might do when they were doing a lot of tedious labor. But these guys were good. They could all sing. They all had some background in music, in their grade school, in their childhood, and like I said, Calhoun had a little more experience on the road. And Emory Douglas, the Minister of Culture, David Hilliard, who you saw in the tape, they heard these guys. And they said, we're doing a festival in the Fillmore at this park. Why don't you guys take some songs, sing some songs as part of the festival? And they're like, okay, we follow orders. That's what we do. We're rank and file Panthers. They got up there and sang songs, and they jumped, and it just worked. And they're like, whoa, this works. And so Emory Douglas and David Hilliard said, go and get a band and recruit for the party. This was the summer of 1970, okay? And the Breakfast for Children program had already been established for over a year. Huey Newton's vision of survival pending revolution, of reaching out into the community and sort of rebuilding the relationship of the party to the community was in place, okay? And there's no better way to reach the black community than through soul music. And so what they did was they took standards of soul music and performed. They got a band very quickly. This is different. 1970, 60, you're fresh out of high school, a couple phone calls, and you can find a band. There's always some youngsters that want to play anywhere, and play for the Panthers, at least until it gets thick, and then they have to get some more youngsters to play. But they got a band very quickly. David Hilliard gave them the name The Lumpin'. And some of y'all, what is The Lumpin'? But back at the time, Marxist study was required for Panther, for people that were participating in the organization. And so they understood, they read Marx and they read Frantz Fanon, who said that the lumpen proletariat, the folks on the edge, folks living, in the below the working class, the folks that Marx didn't even believe were redeemable as members of society. The lumpen proletariat, Fanon framed them as they are the spearhead of this revolutionary, cadre here. And it was easy for Huey and Bobby to frame the lumpen proletariat in terms of the example of Malcolm X. That was somebody who, when he was arrested, he was crazy. He wouldn't even, when the cop said, what is your name and what's your number, he wouldn't answer. He was gone. And it became easy to frame the idea of lumpen as somebody that the Black Panther Party and other groups at that time could transform. Once you politicize somebody that has been at the rock bottom, they're ready for anything. They can take on anyone and anything. And so lumpen had a sort of an air of like a term of endearment almost for somebody. We're the lumpen, we're brothers off the block, that type of thing. So they worked that idea, and it was also an opportunity to start a process of education. If you're listening to this music, you hear it, you're grooving on it. They say, what do they call it? Why do you love it? Well, here's some information. Here's how you can learn about what the party's all about. We're not just militant revolutionaries, and we're not just singing and dancing. We're all of the above. Okay? There's a lot going on with this group. So it's a little known story, but the group lasted almost a year. In many events, they were just there as performance as part of the larger Black Panther Party function. But towards the fall of 1970, they became very popular. They filled the local auditoriums. Emory Douglas put full-page ads for them in the Black Panther Party paper. They did a road trip across country, and they performed in Panther functions in colleges throughout the Northeast, New Haven, Boston, Washington, D.C., all up and down the Northeast, and they came back to the Bay, and they had to go right back to work. And they might tell the story that as soon as they flew back, they said, get in the back of the truck, and they had to go